Sure to wear my TAP NEWO shirt.
I saw that. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Did you make it like?
My aunt gave it to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
No, yeah. I just like to get started off with that.
Yeah,
Honestly, it just makes it so much easier.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. I just honestly just go ahead and just get started by like introducing yourself.
I'm TAP NEWO. I am a DJ, producer, audio engineer, in no particular order. Minimal techno enthusiast, micro house enthusiast. Yep.
Damn. Okay. So like with every artist I get on here, honestly, I just really like to know like just a little bit of background about like, where are you from? Are you from LA?
From SoCal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Born in the 805. Yeah. So my whole family is from Southern California. My mom, her whole side of the family is from Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And my dad, they're all from Santa Monica. So very much SoCal, born and raised. Yeah. And that's why I was born in Thousand Oaks, because that's kind of the halfway point
between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, for my parents raising me as a kid, like they didn't want to raise me in the city.
Okay.
But like, that's why I moved to downtown LA, because when I was a kid, I would come to the city all the time, a couple times a week. And that to me was like, oh, this is where adults like conduct business. Like, so that was like always the dream to get, into the city. So, like I've been living in downtown since 2021.
Okay. So actually not as long as I thought, honestly.
Yeah. Before that, I was living in Santa Monica.
Okay. So you're always around that whole beach vibe and just like, are you like a surfer guy or?
Skater.
Okay.
Skateboarder. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So yeah, when I was like, especially, a couple years ago and even when I was even younger, like when I was 19, I would spend like 10 plus hours a day just skateboarding in downtown LA.
Damn.
Like, yeah, that was always my thing.
So you know how to take the falls then, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you broken anything?
I actually split my my chin open right here. That was probably 6 or 7 years ago.
Damn.
And I can
see the scar.
I can grow facial hair right here. Yeah. Yeah. But skating, that's oddly enough one of the ways that I fell in love with music, because I just would have my headphones in and I was just by myself, just be skating all day.
Yeah.
Throughout Santa Monica, downtown LA.
And how long are we talking about in terms of like you skating? Are we talking like a decade or ever since? You said since 19?
I've been skating since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, and I was skateboarding today.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You still go
on it? Yeah, not like I used to. Now it's more just like point A to point B.
Yeah.
Especially in downtown, like because where I live, I park off site. So that's kind of my transport.
Got to visit between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And God forbids it's self-defense if I really need it.
Fair. That's on. You never know. Honestly. Yeah. That's fair. So like what? I mean, like so it sounds like a skater kid. It sounds like what, rebellious teen kind of?
I went to continuation high school. Yeah.
What's that?
That's continuation high school is like if you drop out of regular high school.
Oh.
Where all the like bad kids go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was so 10th to senior year, 10th grade to senior year, I was in continuation high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why? Because it's like you just hate him.
Ninth grade, I just like, I don't know. I just kind of got to the point where I was like, this is not my vibe to do my schoolwork.
Yeah.
And actually ninth grade was a pivotal point for me as in my like music journey. Cause I would spend all day either skateboarding or on music blogs, because that was back during the blog era. So I was like really just diving into finding stuff on music blogs, and like that was back before social media was like really,
even before MySpace was like a whole
this is like 2010.
Okay.
2009.
Yeah. Not as big as it is now.
So not even close. Yeah. So like music blogs like OK Player, Accelerator, there's another one called Record Label. It had all the vowels removed, so it was like RC, RD, LBL. So yeah, they would post free downloads of songs on like RNS records and all these house and techno tracks, and So that was like, I just spent all of my time doing that, to the point where I was like, I don't want to go to school. Like, and I just kind of stopped doing all my schoolwork. And then next thing I know, I'm in continuation high school because I wasn't focused on my studies.
So it sounds like at this point, like we're talking about your first exposure to electronic music was through that.
Was around ninth grade.
Around ninth grade.
Like 2010.
But I mean, at that point, you were just more like, I just want music to listen to while I go skate. It's not like you weren't like, oh, I want to start making music at this point.
A little bit of both. Like I had saved up money when I was younger to buy a laptop, a MacBook, and it came with GarageBand. And so, you know, I was at that same time, I was so into these music blogs, and I realized, oh, there's a free tool that came with my computer where you can make little beats. And I wasn't making anything substantial, but it sparked an interest. For sure. You know.
So I mean, you were on these blogs, but more or less was House and Techno was obviously like part of it. But was it like this is my shit that I listen to all the time, or was there like more?
Actually, around then I was obsessed with the Roots. I don't know if you know the band The Roots.
Right,
I am like #1 Roots fan. And so it's funny because like I was so into the Roots, and they had a blog called OK Player. That was a lot more of like R&B and hip hop. And I was finding a lot of stuff through there. And then that blog had launched like an offshoot called OK Future that was all electronic music. And around the same time as when I was on these other music blogs finding, you know, more dance music type of stuff. And that was also when like dubstep was really first
booming,
hitting
for sure
the scene, you know. And so you know, I naturally kind of started moving towards electronic music because I liked the beats of hip hop. That was kind of, I liked the rhythm, the loop aspect, and just the
sampling and
all that. And so I just kind of naturally got more into electronic music from being so obsessed with the Roots.
Interesting. And then, but you know, a lot of people usually tend to like, you know, they start going to the festivals, and then they start, you know, raving, and then they eventually DJ and producer. For you, did you kind of go down that same path? Were you starting to rave as well?
What's funny is I remember being in ninth grade and staying up late on these music blogs, and I was listening to this music, and it kind of clicked like, okay, when they have an event like this, it's not called a concert, it's called a rave. So then I started looking. I remember, you know, being like 13 years old and looking. I went on Wikipedia, like, what is a rave? And I'm like, you're telling me people go into a warehouse in the middle of the night and they just set up big speakers? And to me, that was the coolest thing. You know. And then I was also like, because my whole family lives in LA, and like my uncle lives on the east side, my aunt lives in Santa Monica. I was coming to downtown so much because it was just, you know, as we would do, you know, family activities or whatever and come into the city. And and I started to realize like, oh, these raves that I'm reading about, this is where they're happening. You know. And so that kind of was like a seed that got planted in the back of my brain. And then I've I guess just been obsessed ever since, you know. But it's funny because before that, there's almost like for me, there's like a line in the sand on my timeline, I guess, because before that, when I was like, I mean, in middle school, I was kind of into music, but as like a kid, I wasn't really into music at all. So it was like this like blooming kind of thing happening where all of a sudden I was just obsessed, you know.
And then slowly but surely it fell down the rabbit hole. And then what, your first DAW was, well, I mean, I guess GarageBand.
And so, you know, that was back during the days of like Pirate Bay. So between like torrenting a bunch of music, I realized I could also find software on there. So I found a pirated version of Logic. And I realized, oh, this is just like the more advanced version of GarageBand. So then Logic kind of became my go-to for many years. And using Logic was something that I kind of just taught myself how to do.
I mean, at this point in time, like you're still using Logic, or is this like
So right now, I like to say I've collected all the Chaos Emeralds. I use Pro Tools, and I'm fluent in all of these. I use Pro Tools, Reason, Logic, and Ableton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually probably like later on in the podcast, I do want to talk more about like the technical sides of what you do, but just to kind of keep the timeline going. So, I mean, we're at this point now where like, you know, you're starting to really like dive deep into the music world and understand it. It sounds to me like DJing wasn't really like a strong, it was more on the producing side that you kind of gravitated towards.
Yeah. Yeah. The studio aspect.
Yeah.
And DJing in high school, like later on, or I got more into DJing just to kind of understand it.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I got so drawn towards like the studio aspect of it is my uncle is an audio engineer.
Oh.
And so seeing my uncle have a career path of like, that's his whole world is that kind of made it real.
Like this is viable. This is not just some dream.
Yeah. And my uncle does film sound. So he's a sound effects editor at Lucasfilm, at Skywalker Sound. Yeah. So he's been there for like 35 years. He's about to retire. But yeah, he's done like, I mean, his IMDb is crazy. I'll show that to you at some point.
No,
but,
definitely.
He was always more into film, but regardless, just seeing him work with audio drew me towards the studio aspect of it and the DAW aspect of it.
I mean, are we talking about like you got chances to sit down with him, talk to him, and maybe kind of see him in his element type?
Here and there.
Okay.
Yeah, but he always was working up in the Bay Area on Skywalker Ranch, so I wouldn't see him like actually working that much. He gave me a tour of Skywalker Ranch when I was like 14, which was really cool.
Yeah, I bet that was awesome.
Yeah, that was dope. But just talking to him and just knowing that like that is a career path. And so that's when eventually, when I was like 19, I decided to go to college for sound engineering, for audio engineering.
Okay, so you're like, you got a degree in...
Yeah. I went to Full Sail.
Okay.
Yeah, in Orlando.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm not familiar with the school, so I don't know if that's like...
So the reason I went there is, school has always been something I've always been very engaged, but the actual like the busy work aspect of it never really
the tedious.
Yeah, that never really I never really vibed with that. So to make a long story short, when I was out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was just at Santa Monica City College, just taking like whatever classes, mostly actually music history classes, just to because I was like, this is fun,
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing very well in my classes, and my uncle was like, well, you're not doing well in your classes because you're bringing your laptop to class and you're just working on music every day with headphones on. Of course, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I work with a bunch of guys that went to Full Sail, and he's like, well, if you you should just learn sound because you're clearly very interested in it.
Yeah.
And, and so knowing that a bunch of his coworkers went to this school kind of made it like easier for me to step into that.
Yeah. You kind of had like a reputation to kind of understand what you're getting yourself into. And I'm assuming you probably loved 4 years?
Yeah, it was like 3 years.
Yeah. But I'm assuming it's a very like applied hands-on type of curriculum.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very much so. It didn't feel like school. It was the first time in my life I felt like I was just at camp. I felt like I was at,
I love that,
like extended summer camp.
Yeah.
Because all the classes were stuff that I was just, it all made sense to me. It was like, oh, okay, this is how they do it. And I mean, I had to take like physics classes on how, like how a sound wave moves through a room.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So.
And then I'm not sure how the curriculums are set up, but I'm assuming you kind of get to gear yourself towards a specific avenue of, because like there's audio engineering for film, music. Or...
They taught us everything.
Okay.
So they taught us video game sound. They taught us film sound. They taught us music. Obviously recording, editing. That's also where I got certified in Pro Tools. They kind of teach you everything, and then they leave it up to you of like where you want to go from there.
Yeah.
One of my buddies that I went to college with, he ended up doing more live show production type of stuff.
Okay.
So they gave you the option if you wanted to transition into a live type of training, you could do that. But I've never really been into the live sound stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned you like the studio.
Yeah, I'm more of a studio guy. So yeah, and then I mean, you know, I work as an audio engineer, as a studio dude, I guess. I don't know.
It's like your own little cave of like, you know, just editing. I mean, you see it, you do audio engineering work right now. We're talking about film as well, or
no? Well, the closest I've gotten to that is for 2 years, I was doing television sound in Burbank at a company called Deluxe. And so when I was there, I was doing mostly like, it was a lot of like cleaning up of TV show sound.
Okay. So they give you the audio as like,
yeah, they give me like, cause it was just like surround sound. So they gave me like the 5.1, and I would stem it out, and they would have like what's called a localization list. So if the show is being dubbed in Italian or any language, I would basically A/B it to the original and
gotcha, just to kind of
mistakes and stuff.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So,
but it doesn't sound like it really like engaged you as much.
Paid the bills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I met a lot of cool people there. And I did learn a lot, like just on because that's the thing is like I love working in the music business, and I want to continue to do that as much as possible. But one thing I learned from like the TV and film, I guess, aspect of the entertainment business is like, it's a lot more organized, because there's a lot more accountability. You know, because if someone's funding a big project like a show on Disney or Plus or Amazon or any of those, and so there's just there's more of a chain of command and people that you're communicating with, versus music. It's kind of the Wild West, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. It's more, how do you explain? Corporatized? You know, you got to go
Very
through all
corporate.
Yeah. Got to go through all the red tape and all the bureaucracy.
So it's good to learn that.
Yeah.
Because now I can kind of play that game. So it's like, you know, if, because I'm freelancing right now, and like I have been sending out apps to like do more corporate style audio.
Yeah.
So for that, it kind of helps me, you know, look a little more legit.
Yeah.
But I if I can get a position doing something like that again, I would give it a shot. But music is where my heart is. So.
Oh, for sure. And maybe like you said, like it's nice to have the structure, but sometimes being in the Wild West of this side of audio is, you never know what you're gonna get.
Makes it more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So it's the trade-off, I guess, if like pursuing music. It's just like, you know, that's how it is right now. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like, I think talking as well, like obviously you've been into the whole music side of it. Before we even started, you mentioned too, you have your own YouTube channel.
Yeah, TAP NEWO on YouTube.
Yeah. So is that something recent, or is that something you've been doing for a while?
I've been doing that for, at this point, like 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, was it the intent to kind of help promote yourself as an artist, as a music producer?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do I explain this? The YouTube thing, I started doing that because I wanted like my own platform as an artist.
Yeah.
And I stepped away from social media. I haven't been on social media in years. And so I kind of made the decision to like cut out all my social media and just focus only on YouTube.
Okay.
To kind of have more of that like laser beam focus and just put all my energy into that.
That's fair.
And even though I don't have a very large following, I've noticed that on YouTube, I have a much more like dedicated following.
Yeah, they want to be there. They want to watch your stuff. And at least for your channel, like if someone was to go on there, what do they find? Like
they're going to find a lot of DJ mixes.
Okay.
That's kind of become I like to just do that because I'm always digging for stuff. And usually what I'll do is like, you know, I haven't been as consistent lately. I'm getting back to that point just because of a lot of personal things happening. But there was a point for like 2 years straight where I was every single week uploading on YouTube. And so like a lot of that would look like, you know, I would be listening to records that I would find just from digging, like either on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or whatever. And for that week, and then I would, you know, compile them all into my record box and just put out a mix every week, just do that. But you'll also find tutorials. I like to make production tutorials. It's mostly, I would say it's like a good 80% just YouTube of my YouTube is DJ mixes and production tutorials. And then the other like 20% is sometimes I'll just do like status updates, you know, and like I saw, and we don't have to talk about this because I have a video of it on my YouTube channel, but I saw an alien one time in the desert. So like there's videos of me talking about that.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was an alien. It wasn't from this world. I'll tell you that. Anyways.
I'll link it to to this episode so people can watch it. Yeah. I mean,
there's a record that I made about that experience. I saw an alien in the Yucca Valley. It's on my album. Yeah.
All right. I'm definitely going to link it then. We're going to listen to it. But I mean, at least for because I like to talk to people about social media, especially like artists, because it's something I've come to realize that you kind of need to have as an artist, whether you're DJing or producing. Having a social media presence is your equivalent to marketing, you know? And it's kind of like hard now because a lot of people, like a lot of DJs that I know and producers aren't comfortable being behind a camera, aren't familiar with even where to start, you know? So like, it sounds to me like you've been putting 3 years into it. So you've more or less, you're very natural in front of a camera. So it seems like you got
with
the hang
YouTube,
of it.
like YouTube, I think I like it because it's more, I can just be myself as an artist.
Gotcha.
And I feel like, and this is one of the reasons I left Techno Twitter and I left Instagram, and maybe I'll come back. But the point is like, I felt like I kind of had to play the game and I just got tired of that.
Yeah.
Versus on YouTube, like, I've been putting out a record every month and like, I can just drop it on there, you know, and the people who follow me will see it. And you know, I should promote more, but I'm kind of the mindset of like, I would rather have 100 diehard fans than like 1,000 kind of halfway in, halfway out.
That's
fans,
fair. Yeah.
You know?
I think that's a good point too, because I feel like, especially with like Instagram and like Twitter, like you're really chasing numbers. You know, you're like trying to see like how many likes did I get, how many. You know,
and half of it's bots.
Yeah, that's what I have to realize. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, like the fact that you kind of got to this point, I think puts you ahead of the game because you realize that it's like, all right, now I'm not wasting my time and effort.
Yeah. Well, and my watch time is like super high. So that's kind of how I know that like the people that are watching my stuff, I mean, and I would rather just kind of reward those fans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, and then one thing I would like to follow up with that is that you are starting your own podcast now.
Yeah. Yeah. The NEWO cast. Yeah.
I mean, it's not out yet as of...
as of the time of this recording, it's not out yet, but maybe by the time this drops, it'll be.
Yeah. When do you plan to...
I'm trying to drop it this month in March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably we'll release the first episode because I'm going to do it every week. And that's what I've noticed. And that's why I've been banking up. Like, 'cause I learned that with my YouTube channel. If it's consistency that is the key. So like, if I can drop something every single week, it kind of creates for the listener, for the fan, like they can kind of point to that of like, oh, it's Tuesday. Let me see what he's up to.
It's almost your own, it's your own show. Yeah. And then, like what kind of, I guess, format are you, obviously it's a podcast format, but are you kind of like, you know, something like this, getting to know people, or more like focusing on track production wise?
A little bit less of like talk show. It's more of like a discussion related to audio engineering, the music business, techno music, a lot of techno music, anything audio, anything sound. One of my buddies that's on the show, shout out to Cliff. He's more of like a film sound guy. So it's like, it's Cliff, and then 92 Jelani, shout out 92 Jelani. And he's more of like the modular techno guy, modular synthesis.
Yeah.
And then Aaron, who goes by formerly known as Go Deers, but now he goes by Mount Heron. He's more of like a songwriter, and he's a drummer. So, and you know, but and then with myself being more of like a studio engineer, we kind of cover the spectrum of sound and audio and just production, and it's more focused on like the technical stuff. Okay. So we get into deep dives of like, what is the best effect to use in this situation, or
and it sounds like, I mean, I think that's the fun thing too, is just like having your close friends just talking about sound. You just fall into that rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, an hour passes by.
Totally.
Well, that's exciting. But how do you have the time for all this?
I mean, I don't know, man. There's not enough hours in the day.
Oh, never.
Never, you know. I mean, that's the thing, is like, what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel is like have the podcast kind of be, that's a weekly thing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, on other days of the week, there's additional content. So whether that's a new record, a DJ mix, a tutorial. So I want to have like, you know, more than just once a week that I'm uploading, but it's like what I am uploading each week. It's like, okay, Tuesday's the podcast, Thursday's the tutorial, Saturday's a DJ mix, and then just keep that going, you know.
And I'm assuming you're doing all the post-production, editing, everything is, you're on your one-man army.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is like with Pro Tools, I'm very fast in Pro Tools, so luckily it's not too much of a challenge. And I like doing it, you know.
And then the video side, the video editing part,
I don't know how to edit videos.
Okay.
So I mean, that's the crazy thing, is like, that's kind of why I want to keep it just long form, uninterrupted conversation.
I don't edit cut
video.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm not a visual person at all. Like I can go all day with my ears, but visually I'm not. I'm not creative visually.
You know. No, we each have our strengths. You know, I've been doing camera work for 10 years, so like I'm more visual than I am audio.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like back to the off the tangent, but back into the music now. Like I think where we left off was more or less like a little bit about you've done work with television shows. I want to kind of go down the rabbit hole of your music career, though.
Oh yeah, please, totally, yeah.
So earlier you mentioned several genres you kind of gravitate towards. What was it? Minimal techno,
micro house, Romanian minimal, also known as Ro minimal. It's kind of my big three right now.
Okay, I mean, has it shifted since you ever started producing?
Very much so.
Okay,
yeah. When I started, like, I thought, I mean, this was also just kind of the timestamp of it all. Like, I wanted to make like trap beats.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's just like a fun entry point. Trap beats. I tried making dubstep, like, I made some deep house. And then I would say between like 2019 to like 2022, I was really into the whole warehouse techno thing, a little more harder techno.
Okay. Not like the hard techno you kind of see at like 6 a.m. and in Berlin techno.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
I used to work for 6 a.m. Yeah.
And that's how you know David and Eric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really, there was a point when I was really involved with doing more warehouse oriented techno. And so that was something where my tastes changed, and I kind of just I evolved as an artist. And if you look at like just in terms of my discography, like the album that I put out called Fake Techno, that's kind of like a turning point of my sound, because there's a lot of warehouse influences in that album, but there's also a lot of like, you can kind of see like where my sound starts to go.
I see.
And so now I'm much more just minimal techno and micro house. Yeah.
So at least back when you were making more, I guess the more of the warehouse techno,
more aggressive style,
aggressive stuff. You said you shifted, but is that just because going into the minimal side, is it something you were like aiming for, or did you kind of just like naturally progress into it and then you're like, oh, now I'm here?
So when I was like 19, kind of circling back to still the discovery process and self self discovery.
Yeah.
There was a mix that I found called the Fabric mix series. There's the nightclub in the UK in London called Fabric.
I'm not familiar with it.
They do like all the DJs they have at the club, they put out like a CD. And it's like their special,
mix.
Kind of like a BBC One radio mix.
Okay.
Something like a essential mix.
Yeah,
basically. And so there's one which is Marco Carolla. And that at the time when I heard it, like that just blew my mind. Even though it's from 2006, I didn't hear it till I was 19. And so that blew my mind. And so kind of getting back to what we were just talking about, like the shift in my sound going from the harder warehouse style techno and going towards more minimal and stripped down kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was me trying to get back to my roots of like what inspired me with all of this in the first place. And so like that record of that minimal style was what made me fall in love with techno. And so I kind of got to the point where I realized like I don't need to try so hard to fit in this box of warehouse techno and play this social media game of being in the warehouse scene and all that. Like I need to be true to myself as an artist and go back to like what inspired me in the first place. And so now the past few years, or ever since putting out my Fake Techno album, I've been trying to really get back to my roots of like, what do I really love about this music and how can I make something that reflects that?
And how has that journey been for you though? Has it been pretty easy, or are you still kind of feeling are you still kind of like more or less on that discovery path, or do you feel kind of grounded in where you're at now and happy with it?
I feel a lot happier. I wouldn't say it's 100% because you're always, as an artist, you're always developing to a certain extent. But I would say I'm a lot closer now to like the stuff that I want to make, or that maybe the younger version of me would look at and be like, wow, and I'm closer to that now. And I think it's just because I got to the point where I stopped caring about validation. And I stopped, and that's another reason I left social media, is it was really to just get that tunnel vision, and intentionally try not to sound like anyone else,
I see. I think that's a very hard thing lately that I've been coming to realize, is like sounding original. It is hard because like you do have to kind of walk around and find out and see what you like and don't like. But I've come to be seeing like a lot of people like want to fit that image of what a producer is supposed to be.
I gave all that up. I would much rather just have my own sound, and that's something where some of my favorite artists, like any of the records, like deadmau5, for example, anytime you hear a deadmau5 record, he made it, whether it doesn't matter what exact style it is. You just, it has, exactly. It's almost as if it's in his handwriting. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to go for, is like, just whether I'm making micro house or whether I'm making minimal techno or anywhere in between, like just consistently be as original as possible.
And does you feel like that kind of comes naturally when you're more trying to sound design, trying to like just mess with the sound and see what you get out of it? Or because I think a lot of people fall into the trap of like, oh, let me go buy some presets and stuff like that.
So that's another reason I'm using all these different programs.
Oh, okay.
So like for the longest time, I was refusing to use Ableton, kind of stubbornly, just because, this really goes to a broader concept of like, I've always been the kind of person where if I see everyone doing one thing, I'm very quick to question that.
Yeah.
And so like, I was like, well, if I don't want to sound like everyone else, I can't use the same program that everyone else is using. I have to use something different. And so it kind of just so happened that like when I was in school for sound, they were teaching me Pro Tools. So for a long time, I was only using Pro Tools to make music, just because I knew that there was such a small percentage of people in techno doing that, that it would naturally lead to a different sounding record, but as I've developed and as I've learned the tools, like I've learned Ableton and I use it because there's certain things where like if I'm going for a specific type of sound or technique or something, I know I can use Ableton for it. And just because other people use it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that, it's the right tool for the job in that case.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of it's just like throughout the years just been like studying my tools, and in order to stay original, like, okay, what am I going for as an artist? What's the tool that can get me there that, is the path of least resistance for me creatively,
And it sounds like you really built like a strong foundation of your understanding of, how you like to operate.
Yeah. Workflow for sure.
Yeah. I mean, compared to like when you were younger, I'm assuming you were just kind of like
just fucking around,
see what sticks and kind of gets out.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like, 'cause it sounds like this is now your career, right? You've pretty much built a career out of this.
I'd like to make a little more money doing it. But I mean, yeah, I've spent a good 10 years of my life doing this. Yeah.
Because here's one thing that I like, this is something that I experience at least when it comes, because I've done photography and videography, photography for almost like 10 years now. And then starting to implement it more as like more legitimate freelance work. What I've learned is that when you kind of shift passion into kind of like an actual career path, you almost kind of lose a little bit of the fun, the excitement.
Oh yeah.
Yep. One thing I was like, I miss just going out and just I'm wasting 3-6 hours taking photos of something that I know isn't going to make me money, but at least now that I need to be intentional. Is this the right move? Is this the right client I want to work with? I mean, do you kind of see that with your career path?
Yeah, very much so. So actually right down the street from here, there's a studio that I used to work at as a recording engineer.
Yeah.
And there, I've worked at plenty of different recording studios as an engineer. And the company I was working for at the time, they have locations throughout LA, like multiple different studios. And so when I was doing that at the time, I was recording a lot of rappers, mostly rappers, but some singers as well. And I would come home, and then on my days off, I would try and make techno or dance music. And it was very hard for me. And I realized it's because when I was in the studio recording clients, I was putting so much of my creative energy into that then when I came back, I was almost drained of my creative spark.
Yeah.
So that's been something to find the balance of. And that's also why I was open to doing television sound, because it was a lot more technical.
Yeah.
And I could come in and I just had a checklist of like what I needed to do. And that way my creative energy was it was still charged up, I guess. Yeah. And so, yeah, like I've definitely felt times where I've spent a lot of hours, working on someone else's record, and then when it comes to work on my own stuff, it's harder to like get in that flow state because
it was drained. Yeah, it went down.
So that's kind of the balance that I'm trying to find.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's something that happens when the older you get, huh? You're able to say no more.
Yeah.
You're able to say like, you know what? It's not worth the effort. It's not worth my time.
Right.
Yeah. Especially now that you're a lot more intentional with, what you're doing moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But at least someone in your, I would say you're the first person that I've met who've been, actually, no, there's one other, but formally trained, you've built a career out of sound. Where was I going with this? Where do you go? Like, I'm assuming you, just like everyone else, you have, writer's block or creativity doesn't come to you. What tools do you use to kind of help you pull you out of that? Do you go to friends or someone that knows better as a mentor? Or
I just take breaks.
That's it.
That's actually, I'm on a break right now.
Yeah.
I think like just living life and experiencing everything that life has to offer is the best way to like get out of that writer's block. Because it's like if you focus too much on like, oh, I have to make something, I have to create something, that's actually kind of counterintuitive versus just letting it happen. And so like, and traveling is a great way to like, when you are on a break, if you travel and experience a completely new environment, like then when you come back, it's easier to just have that natural creative spark. So yeah, for me, like taking breaks, but also listening. I notice like there's certain, artists that I'll listen to and I instantly like I can feel something like, my batteries being charged for lack of a better phrase. But, so that's kind of what I've been doing now is like, I was, a few months ago, I was traveling quite a bit. And now, even though I'm still on a break, I've been listening to, there's a couple Romanian artists that just blow my mind, like every single time I listen to them. And, just listening to the same DJ set of theirs a couple times in a row and like really trying to understand like, why does this blow my mind so much? And like, really, kind of dissect it. So I'm at the point now where, I have the itch I have to scratch the itch. And that's the thing is like, if you live life and experience just day-to-day stuff and take a break and travel or any way to get outside of that, like that mindset of, oh, I have to make something. If you just throw all that to the side and just do something completely different, that you'll get the itch to scratch. And then that's when it's time to like really dive back.
Yeah, because at least getting to talk to you this past like 45 minutes or hour, it sounds like, especially recently, you're like trying to clear out all the distractions.
100%. It's like recording. It's a signal to noise ratio. And that's the thing is by really tuning out a lot of distractions, like that's how when I am making music, I know that it's coming from a very pure place because I'm not trying to fit someone else's box or like and that's also one of the reasons I stepped away from both the warehouse scene but also social media is I noticed a trend of people kind of trying to make music that they think the warehouse is gonna like. And that kind of turned me off because that's not, to me, that's not how I would want to do it, and so I don't want to make music that I think people are gonna like. It's to me it's all a feeling at the end of the day, and so if I feel it, statistically somebody will feel it too, and
those are the people you want, the ones who feel the same thing you do.
But it's it's tunnel vision is that's something that I try and like, it's like mindfulness. I just try and like stay on it and I try to not distract myself too much or get caught up in like certain trends musically and whatever, because it's I feel like it's easy to lose the purity of like just creating for the sake of creating.
It's not genuine. It's not.
Yeah.
So at least, when it's just funny because like, we talked about you trying to clear out, and then I would say like you kind of went that minimal route, which is kind of representing like where you're at in life right now and just kind of stripping things down.
Like what's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
So
I want to get into the more production side of stuff now. Like, you did produce the more warehouse stuff, which tends to be a lot higher pace. Everything's kind of compressed, punchier, not a lot of room for, I would say, creativity in terms of just being sonically creative with things, given how fast it tends to be. But going now to the minimal route, in my opinion, I feel like it's harder to be simpler, minimal, stripped down. Do you find it challenging, or actually do you find it easier?
I used to find it challenging, and I think that's why at the time when I was making warehouse records, I was doing that because there's a format, and there's a format that's it's like there's rules, you know, and it's like, okay, this is what you do if you want to have a warehouse sound. Like, you're gonna have it's gonna be over 130 beats per minute. Your kick's gonna sound like this, and that, and it's kind of easier to like see results faster with a format to follow. But with minimal stuff, especially with micro house and especially with this Romanian type of stuff, it's a lot about creating space, and the records have to have space, both musically, but also when it comes to the technical aspect of the mix down. And so I used to, I would, and that's why I eventually got back to my roots doing this sound. And I used to avoid it because I didn't feel like I had a level of mastery in the studio to like really make that space make sense sonically. And so now that I've been doing this for so long, and I have more of an intuitive understanding of like, what it takes to both mix a record, but also, create a DJ friendly record. It's easier for me to like take work within that space that I need to have in the record because I know my tools. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, is like with whether it's Ableton or Logic or Pro Tools, Reason, whatever. When I'm making a record now, it's like I actually I'm almost mixing it, and I'm producing the record before I've even put anything down, if that makes sense. Because like it's sound choice is it's more important. And so like if you choose a kick drum that allows everything else to have space, like it's and then also understanding like compression and things that are gonna change how that sounds and how that works in relation to the overall product. Like just knowing my tools, like I didn't used to know my tools as well as I do now. And I'm not saying I'm not an expert by any means, but I just have more of like a I don't have to think as much when I'm making this type of minimal stuff, because it doesn't feel like a puzzle, even though it is a puzzle. And what I mean by that is like the puzzle is like, okay, well, your kick has to be here, but your mid range has to be here. It all has to kind of like
fit together. Sound like,
and it's there's a lot less room for error in that style than in something like warehouse techno, where you can get away with.
It just hides it under the.
You can get away with like more intense side chaining, or you can get away with more intense distortion. There's a little more finesse.
And that's almost surgical. You have to be really like intentional with what you do and the changes you make. But and then one thing I wanted to ask, like, so you're going down this minimal route, you obviously have less elements to work with. You find that it kind of challenges you creatively to kind of like, all right, I have a techno is 7 minutes long, 6 minutes long. You need to make sure that it flows, it moves, it has change in it.
That is where automation is your best friend. You got to automate everything. And I used to like, and this is also when I was doing more warehouse style, like my automation would be less dynamic. Like there would be automation, but it wasn't
just kind of open and close.
It wasn't as much of a feeling. And now I focus a lot less on what things look like in the software, and it's all about what it feels like. And so there's a lot more nuance with automation now.
On that point, do you handle your automation just with a mouse and keyboard, or do you kind of actually have knobs that you turn and let the track play, and then you just adjust?
A lot of it's just mouse and keyboard.
Okay.
Yeah, just but I'm in real time drawing it in, and then
Oh, okay.
I do a lot of like sometimes reprinting, but like additional passes. And then sometimes, because I like to do a lot of generative synthesis, and so like in that there's a lot of elements of like randomness that come into play, and so I'll have automation for that. And then sometimes I'll like, there's a record that I'm gonna drop in April, where when I did that one, I had a generative patch that had some randomness like integrated into the patch that I was automating parameters that kind of, the randomness kind of played off that. And it wasn't sounding how I wanted it to. So I printed it a bunch of times, and then I actually comped it. I comped all the good parts of the randomness that I liked.
Yeah.
So it sounds like one natural take, but it's actually just
spliced.
It's automated randomness that has then been kind of stitched
I usually
together.
call that like organized chaos. Yeah, it's something that I did a lot when I was first starting off. Is like, I love like granular synthesis, and usually you get some really cool sounds out of it. But you know, I would have full on sessions just literally turning knobs and just doing random things, and then this little like 1 bar loop, let's save that and see what I can make out of that. And I think that's what I miss, especially like, and I've been producing for like 5 years, is like, I've come to realize, I went through my old hard drive and I started going through all my old tracks. The first one I ever made until now, I saw how like I started to fall into that box you were talking about. I went from being creative and just out there, and then I got caught up in like, okay, like I'm trying too hard to be something when I just
follow the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah. Follow the format, I guess.
The format, yeah. So I think it's like what you said is like finding a balance, really. And that's,
yeah, well, I've kind of come like full circle almost, because like I used to overthink a lot of this stuff, and I would do that because, especially like, having the training of going to school for sound, like I thought I needed to. I thought if I didn't really overthink it, I wasn't doing it on the level that the pros were. Like, oh, my session has to have a bunch of tracks in it, like otherwise I'm not doing this correctly. It's like, no, like now some of the stuff I'm doing has way less tracks than stuff 5 years ago, and it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just there's a from the jump there's a more like there's more of an understanding of like what's going into this before it's even been made, than like there's not a bunch of cleanup. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like when you're cooking, like I'm just trying to start with higher quality ingredients than start with a bunch of crappy ingredients that I'm trying to like season my way out of.
Yeah. And like that really does comes down to sound selection and everything.
Yeah. Sound selection is that's what I'm learning. It's that is the most important thing.
Yeah. I mean, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but like, there's a lot of sounds out there now, especially because of how big producing has gotten. Everyone is putting out sample packs. Everyone's like, what makes a good sound? I think that's a good question that I struggle to answer, is like, where do I find a good sound?
Well, that's the other thing is, sometimes there's sounds that you'll find where it doesn't need any processing at all. It's literally, you can drag and drop, like especially with one shots and stuff that. Maybe processing like group bus processing and stuff like that. But like, it's kind of just like treating. You have to look at every sound on a case by case basis. It's all context dependent.
That's true. That's true. It can get very biased. It's just really personal taste at some point. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then even to this day, I'm assuming you're still trying to learn and grow.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So how does someone like who's so far advanced in this field, where do you go to find,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm advanced. I just feel like I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Advanced is like, I would say, you know, you got to be like dead mouse to me to be advanced. Or actually Miguel Insicle, he's very advanced. I've had some really cool conversations with him, and we've worked together too. I've done some recording engineering at the Insomniac recording studios. But anyways, you know, advanced, like, that's also kind of subject to interpretation.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it is just in all matter of perspective and relativity, really. Because like for me, my circle is like, you've, you know, achieved a lot more than what the average circle of people I've been around with in terms of like, you know, working with a lot of, Insomniac, like you said. So, but I mean, like, I would say like just really trying to understanding you as an artist and the amount of dedication you have to put in. It's a lot more than what I'm used to seeing. You know,
it's an obsession,
unhealthy obsession, I would assume.
Yeah. It's a mental illness is what it is.
Yeah, but I'm assuming this is something like they're gonna put me in the grave and I'm still gonna be producing and signing.
Yeah, still, you know, just still kind of like searching and you know, I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm gonna do it, but I'm really strongly considering going to Romania. Just to get closer to the source. Of my favorite stuff. And you know, I feel like that would be an experience where I would come out of that having a better understanding, you know, of like how to get in that mindset of
what, because definitely culture influences music.
Yeah.
So understand culture,
totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stuff like that I'm working on and that I will be releasing, I'm excited. It's definitely a shift in, you know, if you go back a couple years ago, like there's a big shift. But it's, in terms of the stuff I've been putting out recently, it's all very consistent. Like,
I mean, am I able to like go on, is it on Spotify or SoundCloud?
Spotify, SoundCloud, Tidal.
Yeah. So anyone can find you pretty much anyway, right? So I can see your discography start from the beginning.
Yeah, the thing that I'm kind of frustrated about is like there's certain things that I've put out of like, you know, either a free download or like stuff that I had put on Bandcamp or that I had signed with labels years ago, like where it's kind of sporadic. Like I think if you go to my Spotify page, like not everything I've ever made is there. You know, and or like my SoundCloud, and it's all kind of fragmented. But that's kind of why, like with my YouTube channel, I'm trying to keep at least more recent stuff like all in one place.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then so I mean, like with your music, when it's a couple of times you mentioned like, you know, the music you put out kind of comes from a certain place, a certain feeling. Would you say that's a lot of what your releases are like? You know, when you kind of sit down, it's like, all right, this is coming from this place.
Yeah. I don't make enough templates. I really should make more templates, and I should save patches that I make. Because I don't know why I do this, but every time I make a record, I just start from a blank slate. Like, and so it's like, that's kind of the fun of it. It's like everyone is different in that sense. But there's certain times when I'm making music where I'm like, oh, this track is very similar to one that I've made in the past, but I didn't like save enough of the good stuff for me to like transfer any of that, you know? So yeah, a lot, but that's kind of the thing, is a lot of it's just like a moment of like, this is how I was feeling, and this is, or not how I was feeling, but the feeling that I was going for, and the feeling that I had in my head, and the aesthetic.
You feel like, because I think when, you know, at least for me, when I started off, I would have that feeling, I would have that idea. I struggled to manifest it into a finished track. Where you're at now, you know, with the experiences under your belt, do you feel like you can easily like, all right, I have this, I feel it, I can get it?
That's kind of the rewarding part of like putting so much time into this, is like it's a lot easier for me now to take something from my head to the speakers.
Yeah, and that's
with less friction.
That's how you can tell someone's been in this for a while.
Yeah.
You know. So at least, you know, now in this point in your life, it sounds like you're kind of, I would say, almost gearing up to kind of like really tackle it more with more intention.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think you know, an album, like another album of kind of like a more cohesive sound is something that I'm getting towards. Like, because the album that I put out, Fake Techno, like it's as a whole piece, it's more or less cohesive, but I feel like I can get further and I can kind of take it. I you know, and I guess it's just that drive to like step it up a little bit, you know? So I'm excited to like put out a more cohesive piece of a consistent sound.
Yeah. And is that something we can expect this year or still?
I don't know yet. Yeah. Cause like I'm sitting on a bank of tracks that I'm dropping every month. And now that I think about it, there's one of them that I probably should save if I do put it on an album. But at that point, it's also like, I can always just make more stuff, you know?
That's true.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, we're pretty much at the end of the interview. We're almost hit an hour right now. One question I'm interested in, what's your favorite plugin software you like to use? Like what is, yeah.
Okay. Reason.
Okay.
Reason is goated as a plugin.
Okay.
Like, because it is its own software.
Yeah.
But it's personally, I don't like it as a standalone software. It's able to be used as a plugin in other programs, and that's really where it shines. So like when I'm in Pro Tools, a lot of the times I will use the Reason Rack plugins that are just stock, you know, within Pro Tools. And that's Reason, like in terms of like a more broad brushstroke plugin, like I would say Reason, but in terms of like one specific plugin, that I don't know. I mean, really just an EQ, like any EQ. Like I think compression is something that people overthink, and they always think they need to have compression on stuff, and you really don't. Like, I mean, it depends, like maybe if you're doing harder techno and whatnot, but what I think a lot of people forget is that, especially if you're using samples from Splice or any sort of sample pack sounds, anything like that, and a lot of synth presets and synth plugins, that's all compressed. From the moment you're using it, it's already has compression applied to it. So it's the kind of thing where like EQ is going to help you more because you can sculpt that stuff. And I don't know. I have very like hesitant conservative feelings about compression. Because I feel like it's overused. So,
well, I think honestly, to go off that point, I fell down the rabbit hole of understanding compression and going through the whole YouTubes and all the Instagram. My conclusion is that, you know, no one knows exactly how to use it in a sense, because you get so many varying point of views, and, you know, I'd say just try it. If it works, great. If not, just drop it. But I try to minimize a lot of the processing I do on sound. And that's one thing I've learned just through repetition. The less I process a sound, the better it sounds from the get-go.
Yeah, well, and it's also it's headroom is what's the most important. And going back to space, you know, and having space within a mix and within a record. If you don't have headroom, you don't have anything. Because like if you don't have room for any of your sounds to actually breathe, there's no point in having all those sounds in there, you know. And volume, you know, I think volume is underutilized. It's so much more effective than trying to over process your way out of something. Just gain staging, you know.
I think those are definitely things that people tend to just brush off to the side when they're learning to produce. It is, I would say, more on the technical side, It takes more time and effort to really understand how to, gain stage. It's something that I haven't learned until about maybe year 3. But afterwards, I was like, why didn't I start with this in the beginning?
Yeah, which I guess kind of goes to like the minimal mindset. Yeah, it's like just like the basics are the basics for a reason.
Yeah, they work and they get you 70% of the way there.
Yeah,
not more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, we're pretty much at the end of it. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to tell the audience or shout outs or anything like that. By all means.
Follow me on YouTube at TAP NEWO. Check out my discography, bandcamp.com/TAP NEWO. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
Of course.
It's been a delight.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to put out for sure, dude. Totally. Thank you.